Hello Internet, my name is Zephyr and I have a truly special video. What you see before you is my very first ever attempt at trying to 3D print a transformer. Notice how I am not calling this a quick review video. That is because I knew going in that there is not going to be anything quick about this. If you couldn't tell just by looking at it, this is very poorly made and I'm surprised that it holds together as well as it does, but I guarantee you that will not last very long. This is supposed to be Omega Supreme, and I have him in his base mode. It's supposed to be a rocket launch station. I know he's mistransformed. He is supposed to have your traditional Omega Supreme transformation, but because of how poorly made this is, I am so fearful of taking it apart any further than I already have. But don't worry, because he still very much does the Omega Supreme thing, and that being making his arms turn into the rocket and having the part of his chest come out and form a small little tank with his head turning into the tank cannon. This design was supposed to have a massive oversized chibi head, but I scaled the head down so that way it could be proportionate with the rest of the robot. And if you're wondering why he is printed in all sorts of different colors, that is because I printed him with rainbow filament and I actually really like the way he turned out. But pointless details aside, getting back to the base mode, because even though it is mistransformed, it is supposed to transform like the original G1 Omega Supreme, I think this actually works better because it means less parts forming. Because as you can see, it already has plenty of parts forming, and a lot of the parts that make up the track do not end up on the figure at all. As a matter of fact, we're going to get into transformation, and the first bit of transformation is we're going to take the tank and we are going to set it off to the side, and we're going to take all of these track pieces, including the rocket for now, and basically just set everything off to the side. We're only going to save 2 pieces of track for the robot mode, and that is it. We're going to set those off to the side and basically just toss everything else in the trash. So with all the accessories and extra junk off to the side, we can now focus on the main bulk of the figure, which is supposed to be the launch station. It does have all the detail you would expect for an Omega Supreme figure, and that is exactly what I meant by this thing falling apart. Let me try and reattach the leg real quick. But what's cool about this Omega Supreme is that spinning around, you can actually see that it has regular hands, and the rockets slide over the already existing hands. So, if you really wanted to, you can actually have them hold a regular blaster. But now, let's spin them around and bring in the accessories. Taking a closer look at the rocket, this thing just splits in half and the little fingers are articulated, which is pretty cool. It's connected by a small little nub that slots into the top half, and we're just going to set those off to the side for now. That's because the very first step of the transformation starts with the tank. We're going to take the tank and we're going to rotate the turret around so that way Omega's face is facing the front of the tank. Then you're going to want to push the entire head up to where it is lined up with the back of the tank. Now, you're going to want to take the entire tank and slot it inside the torso and push it back to where it'll tab into place. And then finally, raise the ramp and it'll make the entire torso of the figure. Obviously, we can't just leave them doing the splits, so now we're going to focus on the legs. We are going to want to rotate the legs 180 at... You're going to want to pop the leg off. You're going to want to rotate the leg 180 at the hip. Once you've rotated the leg, you're going to want to go ahead and bring the leg down. And go ahead and push that up. And now you're going to want to rinse and repeat for the other leg. So rotate 180 at the hip. And just like the other leg, you're going to want to swivel this down. And push it back up if it is not wanting to go into place. Another thing I discovered when making this is that it has tiny little holes that you are meant to use to pin everything together, but my dumbass just wanted to hold everything together using friction. And as you can see, that is not working very well. Spinning the figure to the side because now it is time to work on the arms. So for the arms, they are on a double hinge and you are simply just going to want to bring them down. But I see that it works better by popping the entire arm clean out of its socket, so let me go ahead and finish this step, because now I can show you that it also has a rotation at the bicep. So go ahead and rotate that so that way everything's nice and aligned, and pop that sucker back into place like a person who just dislocated their shoulder. I'm going to rotate the figure and try to do the other arm without it popping out of its socket, because the last thing I want is my Transformers figure to be experiencing excruciating pain. And once you get that all lined up, you want to rotate the arm so that way he doesn't have his fist facing his ass like he's about to scratch it. And here he is in his almost completed robot mode, but there is one last step we gotta do, because we gotta flip him around to his back, and we got to peg in his wings. Take one of the wings, and you're going to want to peg it into his backpack or his jetpack, whatever that's supposed to be. And I'm just gonna go ahead and do 2. Alright, I give up. This does not seem to be one of the good ones, so let me swap it out for a different piece. Let's see if this one works. And of course, this other piece works instantly. We are almost done because now it is time for the most important step. We have to give him his iconic rocket hands. And just like I said earlier, these are gonna slot over his already existing hands. And I'm not sure if it was by design or if it's just a me thing, but I do find it a little bit easier to slot them in a certain way so that way it goes all the way over the hand. Bringing in the other one, this one has adjustable fingers for the claw, and now we could go ahead and slot it onto the other hand. Make sure it is lined up correctly. Push it and give it a little tap just to make sure it goes all the way over the existing hand. And when you're done, you now have a complete Omega Supreme. Getting into articulation, because he may not look like it, but he is surprisingly posable. So obviously, he has a rotation at the head. You can rotate the head all the way around, and you can actually pivot the little gun barrel for his tank cannon. He does have rotation in the shoulders, however, because his little wings get in the way, that blocks them from doing a full 360 rotation. He has a pretty decent range of motion in the arms, being able to lift it out about that far. And as established before, he has a double hinge in the elbow, as well as rotation on both the wrist and the bicep. However, speaking of rotation, lifting the figure up, because he actually has waist rotation. It is very stiff, so I don't want to overdo it, but he does have waist rotation. As for articulation for the legs, he could do a side kick about that far. I'm just going to go ahead and leave that on the floor for now, because he could kick forwards decently far and backwards very far. But now for size comparisons, because if you were wondering what scale this is, I'd say he's about Voyager, because here I have him next to Siege Sideswipe, which is a deluxe, and he is significantly bigger than him. Because this is so poorly made and it's fallen apart so many times, I'm purposely gonna shake the table just so I can knock him over and have him purposely fall apart. Here's the figure after shaking the table and causing it to fall apart, and here's me throwing the entire figure into the box of shame to where it'll never see the light of day ever again. With how crappy this figure is, the only reason I keep it around is for sentimental value, as it is the first Transformer I ever 3D printed, and it is successful to some capacity. I have thought about maybe remaking this figure with the experience that I have now, with all of the pins and stuff that it's supposed to have, and of course printing him in the proper color scheme that he's supposed to be in, but I honest to God do not want to deal with that hassle again. I'd much rather pay for a real G1 Omega Supreme that is made by a professional toy company that is actually made to last. But now I want to hear your thoughts down in the comments. Should I remake this figure? If you think I should, then make sure you hit that like button to let me know that that is something that you want to see, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel as it greatly helps out. And as always, thank you for watching.